Welcome to Dr. Lottie, Science with Soul. I am Dr. Lottie and the host of this podcast. Today, I'm excited to introduce Vincent Genna. Known as the visionary of our times, Vincent Genna, MSW, Masters in Social Work, is an internationally renowned psychic therapist, medium, spiritual teacher, and author. Vincent has transformed thousands of people's lives worldwide through his regular, dynamic, and inspiring radio and television interviews, podcasts, empowering keynote presentations, workshops and classes, and private sessions. And now, Vincent offers his 39 years of spiritual, metaphysical, and psychological insights in his first book, The Secret That's Holding You Back, by G&D Media. Everyone who experiences Vincent goes home enlightened, energized, and empowered, and possessing the key to create the life of their dreams. This is the Genna effect. So welcome, Vincent. I'm so honored to have you as a guest today.
Oh my gosh, it's such a joy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Lottie. And I mean, you were the one that helped even celebrate the launch of my book back in July. So I want to thank you for that again as well.
Yeah, tell us about your book, The Secret That's Holding You Back.
Oh my goodness, yes. That is a culmination of my entire 39 years of experience in the metaphysical world, the spirituality field, and the psychology field, because I did go back to school. It was important for me, if I was going to be a psychic, that I get into the human brain, that I knew more about it. So that's why I wanted to study it. And as I was studying and doing some research, and then since then, the thousands of people that I've been working with on individual readings and group readings, right? I started to realize that there is a common issue with everybody who is not capable of creating the lives that they want. I mean, we're promised that in the law of attraction, right? We know that. We know that we're more than just physical beings, and that we're tapped into, George Lucas calls it the force. And he was very metaphysical and spiritual too. So that movie is about us and our relationship with that power. But everybody, if we're capable of creating what we want and we're not, something is getting in the way. And that's what really grabbed my curiosity and my greatest interest, is I needed to find out what is blocking people, what is working for some and not working for others. And while I was studying psychology, that's when I discovered that the anomalies of the brain that's intentional in order to keep us alive and to keep us surviving, create these blocks itself to shield us from some original beliefs we have about ourselves that may be maladaptive. And those beliefs I call the I'm nots. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not deserving. Everybody knows an I'm not, that we get messages from the environment from very young age. And so out of protection, the brain will protect us by shielding those away. Okay, so in a regular world, that really doesn't matter too much if you have psychological coping skills, right? We learned those in school, how to be able to cope and deal with stress and stuff like that. But then everybody around us is manifesting all these other wonderful things. And the new thought movement and new age movement is teaching us that we're more than, we're spiritual beings, we're unlimited. We can create a life of our dreams, right? And yet we weren't. So that's when I came to realize that those initial beliefs we have when we're younger are what's really influencing our lives. And that's why most people are walking around and they don't believe what they think they believe. And so my book is to teach them how to get through those blocks. It's actually a core to everything. So no matter what you want to try, whatever improvement you want to make on your life, this is a core process and steps and understanding to be able to make everything you attempt come to fruition. Because most people will walk around going, it's not working. God, it's not working. Why isn't it working? It's working for him. It's not working for me. Well, this book gets it all working. And thus, that's the reason why I had to come and write it, Dr. Lottie. And that's all the work that I do primarily, actually.
Wow, sounds fascinating. So what you said, what people believe is not actually what they truly believe. so
Oh,
so it's like it's like a curtain. They think they believe something, but their subconscious is actually telling them something else.
yes. Well, you know, the two highest functions of the brain is one, to keep us alive, two, to protect us in order to keep us alive. Now, we know how it protects us physically. For example, the coronavirus was going around and it's trying to create antibodies to help protect us against the virus, or it'll actually give us a fever. It's not the coronavirus that gave us a fever. It's our brain that causes the fever. It raises our body temperature to an unlivable environment for the bacteria, for the virus itself. That's how it can protect us physically. That's some of the ways. Well, when you have emotional pains and you have hurts, the brain has still got to protect you. So what it winds up doing is it creates a whole new set of beliefs and it harbors them in another section of your brain. In my book, I call it the adult-made mind. And all those Freudian defense mechanisms, you know, suppression, repression, sublimination, projection, all of those things are harbored in that one mind. So it doesn't allow us on a daily basis to be walking around thinking about, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not deserving. Now, those people that don't have strong enough defense mechanisms, they hear those inner beliefs, and that's what causes anxiety, depression, and some mental pathologies that we're aware of that are out there. But for most, the average person, they're not paying attention. They're unaware at this point in their lives that they have those beliefs in them. But there's something that's incredible about the human mind that you know and I know. Once you feed something to it, it will retain it forever. It's even better than a computer hard drive. A computer hard drive, you can format and erase everything off of it. But the human mind, you can't. It retains it, and it retains it out of survival. Now, just because you get older and you forget things doesn't mean that there's something dropping out of your mind. In actuality, the process of coming forward, bringing it forward from your memory, that's the process that is dysfunctional and gets a little bogged down there with dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that. But for the most part and everything, your brain is holding on to everything, and you're an accumulation of your entire lifetime. So those feelings deep down that you're not aware of anymore, and of course, 95 to 98% of the human mind is an unconscious awareness anyway. That's why the iceberg, you know, the iceberg they always use is the human mind model. It's only this much, 2 to 5% of your entire mind is in conscious awareness. So most people are walking around, well, everybody is walking around not knowing what's going on in the majority of their mind anyway. And that's what's going on there. But now take that, Dr. Lottie, and plug it in the wall, because we're powers. Put power to that. And the power is down there. We're not connected to the law of attraction with our conscious minds. We're connected in our unconscious minds. So all of that hidden stuff is actually affecting your manifesting. So you may think in your conscious mind, oh, I'm going to go for my knight in shining armor. I want that true love, that unconditional love, or I want my princess, or I want that real high-paying job. I deserve it. I'm good enough, or I'm going to sing on Broadway because I'm talented enough. You can have all those conscious beliefs you want. But if deep down inside, the deepest part of your mind, you're saying, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to get that. Well, that's the part that is actually influencing the law of attraction, because that's where you're connected. So you may think you believe you deserve it, but the real part of you doesn't believe you deserve it. And that's the problem. So my book and my work, Dr. Lottie, is all about getting to your true beliefs so we can change those into the right beliefs.
That sounds great. Like it's kind of like rewriting the code.
You are rewriting the code. And you know, I love that you said that, because that's what I tell people. And we're familiar with the New Thought movement. We're familiar with all these wonderful new affirmations that they're giving us, right? Well, the way I like people to look at it is if you took a whiteboard, for example, and you wrote on the whiteboard every single one of your real negative feelings and beliefs from when you were a kid. You write it all over the board. Just imagine it. You don't even have to sit there. You can just imagine it's probably going to be filled with a whole bunch of negative things. Well, based on the New Thought movement and all the new concepts and the self-help books out there and the I'm okay, you're okay books and all of those, it tells you to take these positive affirmations and start thinking about those. All right, so now you take the positive affirmations and you're putting them on top of the whiteboard. All right, let's get that all covered up. And so the pretty pictures of everything. My life is beautiful. Take a little bunny picture and put that on there. You know, I'm magnificent, unlimited being. Take that affirmation card. And believe me, if you run out of affirmation cards, there's plenty out there because it's a $33 billion industry today, the self-help and spiritual book publishing companies. Yeah. They have tons of them, right? I have them on my own coffee table. So take them and paste them all over the whiteboard. Now your whiteboard is covered in all those pretty affirmations and saying and declarations. Have you gotten rid of any of those negative beliefs? No. You've covered them up. You've covered them up. That's not the majority of the work. The majority of the work is to go back down and see what those negative beliefs are and replace them and change them into positive beliefs. Those negative beliefs came from untruths. They came from just messages from the environment, maybe the way you were treated or not treated, the where you live, the whole social environment that you grew up in, all the people in your lives. What did you pick up from them? How did they treat you? What did they say to you? And so that's where those negative messages start to come from. And those don't mean that that's true about you. But yet we've got them hidden because we're afraid of them, because the human mind is saying, oh God, no, that's going to hurt too much. We got to cover that. We got to cover that. And that's just no good. And it comes out then in body form. Don't you do, correct me if I'm wrong, don't you do kind of healing work that deals with a lot of that stuff as well? Don't you do that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I work a lot with that.
Right. So then you know what I'm talking about when it comes to it sinking in everywhere. Your whole body can absorb it, not even just your mind, your body. There's telekinetic work, neuro-emotional technique that is out there. My wife and I's cousin, they're chiropractors, but they study and they practice muscle testing and neuro-emotional technique. And what that is that they believe that the emotional issues that you have are held somewhere in your body. They can be held.
Are they KST practitioners?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
KST, core specific technique. They do a lot of muscle testing in their chiropractic.
Yeah, they do a lot of muscle testing. I believe that they are part of that too. And the female, my cousin, she's very intuitive, so she uses a lot of that as well. And they help to release old negative emotions that have been packed away in these body parts and help you. So we're like one big giant retention center. But here's what I believe is interesting about that. The only reason why it went into the body is because it had to be held somewhere. It's like if you're going to hold on to it and not release it and work on it and deal with it and heal it, it's got to go somewhere. So yeah, if you look at your mind as maybe a bottle and you can keep filling it as much as you want with the negative experiences, but what happens when the bottle is full? Well, in psychology, we know when that bottle gets full and the protective mechanism that's holding it down, the cork that's holding everything down, it can actually get a crack in it or blow up altogether. Then you're going to see a lot of different mental pathologies. But what happens if the bottle leaks out all over the place? And it leaks out into your body. And so now you're having a physical ailment instead of a mental ailment. You're getting a disease, you're getting a cancer, you're getting some kind of imbalance and disorder. It's going to come out somewhere, somehow. And that's what I want to work on. And I love the work that you do. And we just come at it from different angles, but it's so important to get it out there and release it, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's very important. So tell me, why is it so important, the self-beliefs that we form as children? Why is that so important?
Because that's where it starts. That's where it starts. It's so funny. I really love Facebook. Okay. A lot of people have complaints about it, but I love social media because number one, after I read it, I come up with the greatest different podcasts that I'm going to use from something I just read off of Facebook. That's like, oh my gosh, this is the most ridiculous thing I just read. I got to do a podcast on it. Usually where it comes from. It isn't about how wonderful I should do a podcast. But no, it's always about some stupid thing that was there. And yes, and I will admit it. Maybe that's not political correct or a law choice. No, I just had this discussion on another podcast. Was an interview. It was actually a radio interview where I said, no, I saw a sign on the side of a road, and it was at a church, and it did say, yes, everything happens for a reason. And sometimes the reason is you make stupid choices. And I went, yes, that is definitely, that church had to be in New York someplace, and tell it like it is. But yes, there's some things that are said, like there's all of these things about forget your past, don't look back, because that's not the direction you're going. You're always moving forward. You're always going forward. Look ahead, look ahead, look ahead. Let me tell you something about looking ahead. The one thing I learned when I was first driving, I had the greatest driving instructor. And that driving instructor said, don't just look ahead, because some of your worst accidents will happen behind you. Look in the rear view mirror and your side view mirror so you can see behind you. And I believe that when you're walking in life, could you imagine just walking down a path and doing everything you can, never to turn your head around, but just keep it forward and move forward, because that's the direction you're going in? Well, that would bore me and frustrate me, because number one, while you're looking ahead, you're actually focused on place that you're not at yet. You're looking way in front of you. You're not there yet. Okay, so you're constantly realizing where you're not. When you look behind you, you can actually see how far you've gone and how far you've come. And you can actually see where you are by looking behind you rather than looking just ahead of you. So when I think of that, and I look at my life and realize I'm an accumulation of what was behind me, my past, my childhood, and now. And I'm going to be using that and need to use that in some way that is going to propel me forward. So that's why I believe, and knowing that we're an accumulation, because like I said, whatever you put in your head, I'm 67 years old, but in actuality, I've accumulated 67 years. I didn't just jump to 67. Everybody celebrates their birthday and they think of just the birth date. Okay. So like here, I'm 66 on this date, and now I'm 67 on this date. And they forget everything that came in between. 66 and 1 day, 66 and 2 days, 66 and 3 days. So we have all that wonderful accumulation in there. And as much as we don't like it, because of so many people just want to forget their past, you can't. It's easier to cut off your arm than it is to forget your past. So yes, and because your past is in your unconscious mind now, because you're on your conscious mind in the present, right? And you're connected to the law of attraction in your unconscious mind, then just out of deduction, what mind do you think is controlling your manifesting? Your conscious mind? No, your unconscious mind. That's why it's a little fallacy when they say your thoughts create. In actuality, your thoughts do not create. Your beliefs create. Your deep down core beliefs. Now, your thoughts influence and change your beliefs,
Mhm.
but your beliefs are what create and manifest, nothing else. Because if it was just a thought, think of this, Dr. Lottie, the instant that somebody had a thought, that would be manifested.
Mhm.
Right now, half the world would be dead and the other half would be billionaires from winning the lottery every single day. It's impossible. How many times, think of the thoughts you've had, or even just said something out loud about somebody, either in anger. I don't even want to think of, coming from New York, there were some phrases that we used over there that I don't want to imagine if that instantaneously happened, because I'm creating from the moment I speak and the thoughts I
Yeah.
say. Right. And even people today, it's so funny when you teach something, I guess there's a big giant learning curve to it. And all of a sudden people have become frightened, right? It's like somebody will wake up in the morning and they'll turn around and they'll say, oh, I don't feel that energetic. I'm probably going to have a bad day. Ooh, I shouldn't have said that. Ooh, take back, take back, take back, take back. Like they're so anxious because they said something negative. It's like, give me a break. You have a little bit more leeway than that. If you don't believe it, if you believe it, it's going to happen. But if you don't believe it and you just happen to say it because, you know, maybe you slept on your arm all night and you got a pain in it, or you're 67 years old and you wake up with some pains in your body, yeah, you might say something like that. But then you just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
People too much about that stuff, but it is about your beliefs. That's why childhood beliefs are the most important things that we have to work on. And they did that in psychology back in the 70s. You remember that time period where everybody was focused, the psychologist was focused on inner child work. Then it was forgotten because it's not
Well,
a knowledge.
I was in Sweden, so it might probably different, but we are only 3 years apart. So I was born 58. I'm 64.
Oh, you're young. Yeah, yes, you're a young, and I should have known that.
So I'm only 3 years younger than you, but I didn't come to the United States until 1979.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when
So
I was 21.
have a lot of that stuff over there. But yeah, over here back in the 70s, it became very famous. John Bradshaw, he did inner child work.
Mhm.
Became famous at the same time that Wayne Dyer became famous. They had PBS series on at the exact same time.
Mhm.
And John Bradshaw wrote the book, The Homecoming, Reclaiming and Championing Your Inner Child. And so there was a lot of psychology inner child work at the time. And then as usual, you know, practices go, people got bored with it and they forgot it. But guess what? They're coming back to it again because they're understanding that it's that inner child, those set of beliefs.
Mhm.
Look at the way people are acting, and that proved that. Look at the way people are acting today. I'm talking about the ones that are lashing out. They're lashing out in such a way that you can even look at them, step back, and even people have said it. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, they look like a bunch of kids having temper tantrums. They're
Yeah.
such children, right?
Mhm.
And they're right,
Mhm.
because it's the child within them that is responding. So why forget that part when that's the part that needs the healing the most?
Yeah. So how do we heal all those people?
Drugs, like a lot of drugs. I mean, no, those people, us, or even all of us. Okay, I will share something with you that you may or may not know. Through my youth until I was 17 years old, um, I was completely bullied at school. I was the one that was chased every day. If I was caught, I was beat up. So I became the fastest runner in my school. In school, they shoved me in lockers, flushed my head in toilets, peed on me, spit on me, threw me in dumpsters, de-pantsed me, stripped me, and threw me into assemblies to have me completely humiliated. And then life at home wasn't any safer because my mom, having been sexually molested by her own brother and relatives, until she was 13 years old. She had borderline personality disorder, major depressive disorder, panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and she took it all out on my brother and I. Then let's throw on top of that I was sexually molested by my babysitter until I was 13 and the parish priest who was coming over to take care of my mother. I've taken care of a lot of that stuff. Matter of fact, I've taken care of all of it. And that's why I am where I am today. I've done the work, which is what led me to my book too. However, every injury causes a scar. Until today, little Vinny wants to pop his head up to tell me, Or you're not good enough. You're not going to succeed. Oh, that book, nobody's going to like that book. Who's going to read it? What difference does it make? It's not good enough, because he's been scarred. The human part of me has been scarred. So I had been doing this work for a very long time. And I'm grateful that I have, because here's the thing. Even though little Vinny is speaking, number one, I hear him real loud. He's not hidden anymore. I don't have to have a defense mechanism, because I want to know when he's upset. I want to know when he's going to be rearing his head, because then, number two, I can reparent him. I can embrace him. I can let him know, no, that's not true. You've already had evidence that everything is going well. You are such a good person. There is no reason why you wouldn't succeed. And everything and the way you were treated in the past is not the truth about who you are as a person. That came from jealousy and people that had their own issues. So I reinforce that all the time. And it stops me now. It didn't before, because little Vinny influenced a lot of my life in the beginning. And I missed out on a lot of wonderful opportunities, because I was manifesting what I didn't want rather than what I did want. And so by paying attention, by doing the work, and I list some exercises in there to be able to do it, you've got to disempower the defense mechanism, first of all, Dr. Lottie. You have to be able to say, okay, I'm not creating what I want to create in my life. I don't have the life I want. I must be stopping myself. There you go. That is a disempowerment right there. As soon as you face a threat of any kind, it can back down. And we have plenty of evidence of that in history. We have religious leaders, spiritual leaders, political leaders, between Jesus, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and everybody in between. Jesus said, when somebody hits you in the right cheek, turn and offer him the left. Gandhi stood there in front of the British, not in violence at all, but would not back down from his beliefs and would allow himself to be beaten until they stopped beating him. And eventually the British just left India. Martin Luther King Jr. stood up for his beliefs and had his nation and his group of people believe that they deserve to be treated equally. And in their marching and their standing for their values, that's how they gained and still fighting for complete equal and civil rights. So it was always stand and face that which threatens you. So stand and face your own defense mechanism by saying, no, I know I am getting in my own way. Something is blocking me. That's step one. And this is I'm just saying this in a very easy form. Of course, you do some practices. The process is really easy. It's simple. The practice is hard, because there's so much ingrained in you over the time that you've got to retrain, right? You've got to stand up and do these things. The second part is the hardest part, being brave enough to face what you really believe about yourself. That's the hardest. In psychology, we had a hard enough time getting people to come for therapy. And most people, even today, won't go for therapy because their greatest fear is finding out what they believe about themselves is true. That's what they're afraid of finding out. So they will live by the defense mechanisms, and many people know they have defense mechanisms, but they're okay with it, because I'd rather believe he's a jerk than come to the decision that I really am the jerk. When that is untrue too, they don't go to the deepest level to find out they're magnificent and divine. They stop at, and that's the other part of the brain, that a mind that I call the environment-made mind, where we hold all those maladaptive beliefs. That's all the way down there on the bottom, just above the unconscious, superconscious, and soul's mind there. That's all in one. So they're afraid that they're going to find that out, but they have to be brave enough to allow that to come up to the surface so they can change it. When I've had many of my clients, if not all of them, I see inside of them what they really believe about themselves, no matter what they say. And it's so funny, because culturally, depending upon where in the world and in this country the people are from, will also add to their defense mechanisms and the strength of them. So some can be really strong. And it's like, okay, I'm putting on my boxing gloves. I'm not giving up over here. I'm staying here. And I do a lot of bubble bursting, but I eventually will get them to admit and say to themselves, I'll actually say out loud, I need you to say this. All right, you've had no relationship work. You've been in 3 marriages. They've all failed. Okay, you don't love yourself. They'll argue, argue, argue. And then finally, when I give them the evidence and I show them why I've come to that, then they go, oh, you're right, you're right. And I said, okay, now I need you to say this. I need you to say this out loud. I'm not lovable. And they go, okay. And I go, I'm not lovable. And I say, how does that sound? You're an adult now. You're intelligent. You've been through a lot. You've learned a lot. How does that sound to you? And they say, that sounds ridiculous. You're right. And you've been carrying around that belief your entire life, and you've not paid attention to it because it does sound so ridiculous, and it hurts to even think that you would believe that. But by now recognizing that that's what your belief is, do you think you can change it now? And I say, yeah, absolutely. I wasn't paying attention. Of course I can change that. I said, well, that's what you have to work on, changing that belief and any of the other I'm nots. Unless you're a criminal and behind bars, they're the ones that have a harder time trying to muster up why they should believe in themselves. But even them, there is value. We're all divine beings, no matter what choices or behaviors that we have made in our lives. We're all divine, we're all magnificent. It may be hidden, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't change your definition and your value and your worth. And so the work is recognizing and finding that, and then reinforcing it and reinforcing it and reinforcing it. I am good, just like I do with little Vinny. Anytime he wants to speak, no, Vinny, you are good. You are successful. You have been great. And life is going to continue, and you can manifest. I know that's not sounding simple, what I just said, but that's actually the process. That's what you need to be able to do. And everybody can. Everybody can. Because I've seen it happen. I've seen people with no homes do this work, and all of a sudden, instantaneously, things change. Miraculous. People are writing reviews about the book and the work, and I've been working with them anyway. Like I said, this book is only an accumulation of the work I've always been doing. It's nothing new. I'm actually expanding upon it and using it as a great tool. And people are seeing instantaneous changes because we are plugged in the wall. So this isn't about 12 years of work. This is about taking the time to do it in a moment, in an hour, every day. And all of a sudden you'll see instantaneous changes.
So tell me, where can people find the book?
Oh, all they have to do is go to Amazon or any fine retailer online. It's easier online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all of them have it online for sure. And that's the best way to get it. It's also in audio, which is fabulous. Usually it takes a long time before the publisher wants to do the audio version, but I have so many people that drive and work at night and they want to listen to the book rather than read the book. So we did the audio version when yours truly read it. So it's a lot of fun and it's easy to listen to. And you can get that on Amazon and Audible as well.
That's great. So before we wrap up this session, if you could give any advice to the listeners today, what would that advice be?
That's such a great question because it's like, there's so much going on today. Okay, okay. So let's say that this is part of my advice here. We look at the world right now, and that's what people use, right? They don't look at the warm, fuzzy world that they would like it to be. As a matter of fact, there are many psychologists that say suffering is caused by looking at the world and seeing it the way you'd like it to be, rather than seeing it the way it is. That's not what suffering is. First of all, seeing the world the way it is and thinking that that's all there is, that's suffering. But seeing the world as you know it could be, that's different. So what I need everybody to do for themselves when they're looking at the world, when they're looking at the devastation, we just had it. We just had devastation in Florida from this wild storm that they have never had such a high, category hurricane hit them like that, right? All of this stuff all over the country, the fires in California and everywhere else that's going on, any of the tsunamis, the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the fighting, the killing, the going into, you can't don't just turn off the TV and think you've turned off negativity. You haven't, because since it's all around you, it's going to come down on you. And it's going to affect you in some way. So what you need to do is realize you're not that negativity. Those are only circumstances. Those are only results of choices that have been made. You are the choices you make. That's what defines you, the choices you make. And in actuality, your true definition was created for you from the moment we were all created, because we were created from a power, a source, whatever you want to call it, something out there, not just a meteor, okay? Something even created the Big Bang, whatever it was. That's where we come from. We're powers, we're sources, we're magnificent. That defines us. Now, in this existence, then the choices you make get to further define you. Look at yourself as greater than the accumulation of your experiences. You're much bigger than what you think you are. And if you start with an attitude of that I am not this physical body even, that I am greater than that. I'm an energy form that is actually empowering this physical body. If your soul left today, your physical body would just lay itself right out. It has no purpose without the soul. And your body is in your soul is not in your body. So that's why you're bigger than. Look at yourself in that way. Look at yourself as always knowing I can make and create myself better than what I am today, and my life better. Start with that true understanding and knowing that you must believe in yourself. Believing in yourself first empowers you to open the doors to everything else. There is a great scene that I love. I love Walt Disney because I believe that most of their stories not only were morals for children, but metaphysical messages for the adult that took them to the movies. And Lion King is one of the greatest ones that I believe is the story and the relationship between us and the higher force, Simba and his father Mufasa. And the one scene is after Mufasa had died and Simba has grown and he's all alone, and Rafiki meets him and he sees his father's reflection in the pool. All of a sudden his father comes in spirit and turns around and says to him, Simba, you have forgotten me. You have forgotten me because you have forgotten who you are. You are the one true king. That's what his father says to Simba. You have forgotten yourself. We have forgotten who we are. Remember who you are by remembering that we come from something greater. Start doing the work. Know that you're worth it. Know and commit to yourself, and you will transform your life like you can't believe it. That's what I would say to everybody, Dr. Lottie.
That was wonderful words of wisdom. So before we wrap up, please tell people how they can work with you and how they can find you.
All they have to do is you go to my website at vincentgenna.com with a Genna. That will lead you to everywhere else. I have a lot of social media. I actually have Facebook Live events. One is coming up on October 16th. It's a Friday. It's at October 16th. It's on my listed, and you can get readings by coming to the Facebook Live event. I have my own podcast, The Genna Effect. And again, you can connect through there. So you can go everywhere to get a hold of me. If you buy my book, I have even a Facebook group, The Secret That's Holding You Back, where people are coming. I have over 200 members and they're sharing their experiences with each other, and I get to communicate with you there. And if you want to book a session, you go to my website as well. That gives you all the information. Thank you for letting me share that. vincentgenna.com.
And I will put that in the podcast notes as well. So vincentgenna.com. you can just go to the podcast notes, click on the link, and it'll take you straight to Vincent's website. So thank you so much for being a guest on the show today, Vincent. It was such an honor to have you share all your knowledge with the listeners.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me take up most of your time. It's just like I get so passionate that I don't even see the time going by, and I think I'm talking just for 1 minute and an hour's gone by.
Well, it was great, and I'm sure all the listeners appreciated it.
Oh my gosh, it's only my wife that doesn't appreciate it. That's it, because I do the same thing.
Well, thank you.